Hello, Franklin County Schools families. As we make a shift to Plan B, face-to-face instruction, I wanted to provide you with some important information that will help you better prepare for this transition. Under the Plan B schedule, students will be returning for face-to-face instruction beginning the week of October 26th with our pre-KK and 1 students, followed by our 2-5 students on November 9th, and our middle and high school students on November 16th. On the Plan B schedule, students will be assigned to either groups A or B to attend school. This will allow us to reduce our capacity by half and will provide the opportunity to socially distance. Group A will attend on Mondays and Tuesdays and will learn from home on Wednesdays through Fridays. Group B will learn from home on Mondays through Wednesdays and will be in school for face-to-face instruction on Thursdays and Fridays. Families will receive notification of whether they will be in the A or B group on Monday, October 19th. Students will also have the opportunity to remain on remote learning through our virtual academy. Families received a survey on Monday, October 12th to determine whether they would prefer to stay with remote learning, virtual academy, or attend face-to-face. These are due by Friday, October 16th for planning purposes. Students electing to participate in Virtual Academy will participate in live instruction 4 days a week, and on Wednesdays would be provided with asynchronous or offline instruction. We recognize that this situation is fluid, and we are working to provide flexibility during this challenging time. With that in mind, families electing to switch from virtual to face-to-face or face-to-face to Virtual Academy at a later date are asked to give a week's notice so that the school can plan for this transition. Our bell schedules are being adjusted to make it easier for us to share buses as needed between schools. Our elementary schools will start each day at 7:45 a.m. and will dismiss at 2 p.m. Our middle and high schools will begin at 8:45 a.m. and dismiss at 3 p.m. As I've said before, Plan B is not business as usual for our schools. We have very specific guidelines that we have to follow to ensure the safety of our students and staff during this time. These regulations come from the Department of Health and Human Services. As we review these guidelines, you will likely think, this sounds like a lot. It sounds rigid. I agree with this sentiment, but we have to operate within these parameters, and I want to be sure that everyone understands this up front so that we are prepared to meet these expectations when school starts. If for any reason these guidelines are not manageable for you or your family, I would encourage you to consider our virtual academy, which will remain an option for our students this year as we navigate COVID-19. For those students who join us for face-to-face under Plan B, I know that our school staff will work to make this a welcoming and nurturing environment, even with these strict procedures in place. So let's talk about what Plan B will look like in our schools. First of all, what will happen in the mornings? Each bus rider and parent will be asked to sign a bus contract that includes specifics on new bus rider protocols. For students riding the bus, they will be screened at the bus stop before boarding. The screening will include answering questions and having a temperature check. At the elementary level, we are requiring that a parent, responsible adult, or older sibling be at the bus stop so that a student with symptoms will not be left at home unattended. Face coverings are required on the bus, and extra masks will be provided in the event that a student presents without one. Students will have assigned seats and will sit one student to a seat. The only exception would be siblings who will be allowed to share a seat. For car riders, each school will have designated screening points. Car riders will be screened before exiting the vehicle. Students who do not pass the health screening will be asked to remain in the car. So what about visitors to campus? Visitors will not be allowed to enter the building without an appointment. Parents bringing students to school after the beginning of the day or those picking up students early will need to press the buzzer at the entrance to the school to communicate with office staff. All visitors will be required to wear a mask when entering the building. They will need to complete a health screening or answer a series of questions and will have their temperature checked prior to entry into the building. There are health and safety guidelines that must be followed throughout the day. In addition to the health screenings and temperature checks, masks must be worn correctly, covering the mouth and nose all day. The only exceptions are when students are on a mask break and are eating. Mask breaks will be taking place periodically throughout the day. These will take place outdoors, and students will be further than 6 feet apart during these times. During recess, students will be able to remove masks outdoors, but they will follow social distancing guidelines during this time. If students refuse to wear masks, this will be considered insubordination and will be dealt with as a disciplinary issue. Students who are unwilling to wear a mask will be provided with a remote learning option. Staff will work to maintain 6 feet of separation between students, especially for sustained periods of time, like in the classroom setting. This will not be possible at all times, but our goal is to maintain at least 6 feet of social distancing. So what about meal times? As part of the extension of our summer feeding program administered by the state, all students will receive both breakfast and lunch free of charge for the remainder of the 2021 school year. This service will be available for students who are in school face-to-face as well as those on their at-home learning days. Virtual Academy students can also access meal service each day. In order to be in compliance with social distancing guidelines of limited indoor mask removal, students will be socially distanced at least 6 feet apart, and masks can be removed for up to 15 minutes to eat. Students are also encouraged to bring water bottles for use throughout the day. We have established filling stations for these and have closed our water fountains during this time. Cleanliness and hygiene are very important. We will provide soap, hand sanitizer, and tissues for use throughout the day. Hand washing with soap and water for 20 seconds, or the use of hand sanitizer will be encouraged for use by staff and students. Frequent breaks will be incorporated for hand washing and sanitation. Surfaces will be cleaned and sanitized frequently. Paper-based materials such as books and paper are not considered high risk for COVID-19 transmission, and they don't need additional sanitization. We will work to keep student supplies separate and will discourage sharing of materials during this time. So what if my child is sick or has had a potential COVID-19 exposure? Because there are a range of symptoms associated to COVID-19, we ask that any student who does not feel well remain at home and contact their healthcare provider. Students who do not have an elevated temperature during the morning screening, but subsequently develop symptoms of illness during the school day will be escorted to a designated isolation room, and the parent will be contacted and expected to pick them up immediately. Students will not be able to ride the bus home, so it is important that parents have a plan now for getting their student home if they become ill during the school day. Please make sure that the school has accurate contact information on file prior to October 26th. Parents of students who are sick and do not come to school are asked to call the school regarding their symptoms. If the student that is sick is exhibiting COVID-19 symptoms, they must seek medical attention before returning to school. Prior to return to school, students will be required to provide documentation that they sought medical attention and either tested negative for COVID-19 using a test or received an alternate diagnosis. If it is determined by the medical provider that the student does not have COVID-19, students will follow the recommended return to school guidance from their medical provider, which should include not having a fever for 24 hours without the assistance of a fever-reducing medication. If the test results are positive for COVID-19, the student will follow the guidance from their medical provider and the local health department about when to return to school. Siblings of students who are ill or exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19 will also be expected to be picked up or remain at home until documentation of a negative test for COVID-19 is received by the school. Students who have been exposed to COVID-19 will be required to quarantine at home for 14 days after the last date of close contact. So what about additional questions that I may have? You will receive additional, more detailed information regarding Plan B through the Plan B Guidance for Families document. This will address issues regarding EC and pre-K programming, athletics, before and after school care, and will answer a number of questions for you. In addition, you will be receiving detailed guidance from your child's school on the daily schedule and procedural information so that you are better prepared for your child to re-enter face-to-face under Plan B. As I've stated, this isn't business as usual. We are working to provide our families with a face-to-face instructional option through Plan B. Our staff is committed to making this work, and we need your help in supporting these health and safety measures. We also continue to provide Virtual Academy option for our families, and we would encourage you to take advantage of this option if you aren't comfortable with the measures that have been outlined. I also want to reiterate that we may have to back up and revisit a Plan C remote learning only, if we end up in a situation where we see a significant increase in cases in our school community that leads to an inability for us to continue to safely and effectively operate in a face-to-face environment. This virus has forced all of us to make adjustments and be responsive since March, and we are committed to continue to do so. We appreciate your patience as we make this next transition. Thank you for your support of Franklin County Schools.